Hey everybody, welcome. Thanks for answering my poll last week or the week before where I asked what would you like to learn more? And overwhelmingly, everyone was like more just design tutorials, like how do I get from point A to point Z with my email designs? And I thought I could almost kind of break this up into a bit of a series. So this is going to be almost like part one, and we're going to be diving into what I personally like to use, Figma. This will almost be like a Figma 101. So the main things you need to know about Figma and like just how to get started, how to start stretching your legs in there, start practicing. I mean, that's the biggest thing I can recommend is just practicing and like understanding like how to assemble an email, how to actually like work any of the widgets in there. It can seem daunting, it can seem overwhelming, but trust, it's all good. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and we're going to jump right into a Figma board and just go over some of the basic elements that are the best to lock down. Okay. So let me go ahead and share my screen real quick. So we're going to go over into Figma. Here we go. Okay. So, first things first, when you open up Figma, you can work within a design board or a FigJam board. The difference is that a design board is really going to be the preferred one. FigJam, like let's say you work with a team and you want to, I don't know, storyboard something, you want to outline things, you want to plan projects, send that over to FigJam. If you want to actually work on a design, putting things together, prototyping, that's where you want to stay inside of a Figma board, okay? So over on the right, you'll find almost like your hub. I like to call it almost like a marketing hub. So you have local styles, you have colors here, but what you can do is come over into local styles on the right and say you have a default font. You don't want to go hunt for it every time. You don't want to search for it. You can actually go over here on the right and say that this is our headline font. So we're going to name it headline, right? And maybe we stick to Roboto. And we do Roboto, and that's going to be extra bold. And that is our headline. And usually, let's say in an email, it's about 35 points. So it's really kind of larger, bolder. It's the headline. You got that locked in. And then let's say we want to add in our paragraph. And then this could also be maybe our Roboto, but we're looking at closer to a 20-point font and just regular. So we'll create that style. So you can see over here, you can start putting together your brand here. And then once you have this, I mean, you have this kind of locked in and you can keep reusing this for all of your email designs. It makes it super, super easy. You don't have to go and kind of be like, okay, what font did we decide? We change things up. You can kind of put it all here. You can also come over and pull in your colors. So colors are great because you gotta have a brand color palette you're working with, right? And you don't even have to name these. You can just come in and say like, okay, we work within kind of like this one here. And we also work in, this color here. So you start building almost like your little color swatches here that you can quickly grab from. You can also pull in effects. Grid, I actually don't even know what a grid is. I never use a grid. So there's a couple other local styles you can pull in. I think that grid is more useful for actual website prototyping and things, but pull your brand together in here. You'll have it locked in, good to go. I set my page background here to black, but typically, you can kind of keep it on a gray. You can go full all the way if you want to pull it into white. I'm going to kind of leave it at kind of a darker color here. So when you're first getting started, you have a few options over here. So you have, your move here where you can move and scale. Move is just going to be your regular movement around the page. You have over here where you can select frames, which I'll get into, sections and slices. You then have a shaping tool over here. So if you want to pull in some shapes, work with some vectors, these are those pieces here. Then you have your pin tool, which is great when you want to, and I'll show you, kind of make your own shape that you want to clip your images into. That's great. You pull your pen or your pencil tool in. your text, and then you have some components and plugins and widgets. You see that I really don't use that MIDI plugins. There are so many that you can work from. A couple of them I like to use is to Path. And what that is let's say I'm using my pen tool and I end up drawing an arch. So we'll kind of like arch this up, right? And then I want my text to follow this path. You'd use that plugin. That plugin can follow any path you build. So it's kind of a cool thing if you really want it to hug a certain shape. But there are, so many plugins. You can find so many in here. It's great. There's so much. This kind of like hand tool just kind of moves you around the board. Hard to see because I don't have anything on here. And then you have your comments. So if you're working with a team, you're working with a client, you can drop a comment in and start communicating and saying, hey, can you approve this? Or what do you think about this? You can communicate right inside of Figma, which is super helpful. Okay, now into actually designing. So over here, we had that frame and that section. I recommend you start with section. So section is almost like what I typically use it for is saying like, this is our welcome series. And then all of my designs will live inside of this welcome series. So it's like almost kind of compartmentalizing your designs into a section. So it's easy to find, you can reference it, you keep things kind of separated. It doesn't become like a mess on your page here when you're working. And then your frame is going to be your actual email in a way. So I go ahead, I drop one in. It automatically comes in at 100 width. Typically, most email programs are looking for 600. That's the standard. So I'm going to go ahead and pop this to 600, and it went ahead and stretched it to the width that I like. This is important because if I have a final design here and I just want to export the entire frame out, it could perfectly plop into an image block in Klaviyo, in MailChimp, whatever. But it perfectly fits the full width. So you don't have issues with sizing or being blurry if it was too small. This should perfectly match in email. And then as far as your actual length, it can go as long as you want. Depends on what your final email design is. But the 600 width part, very important. You want to make sure that is locked in. So in your frame, you can come in and rename it. So let's say we're going to say that this is welcome email 1. And then you now have a section you can pull around if you want to move things around your board. You can imagine if you had a ton of different designs in here, you could easily reorganize things and keep them really kind of sectioned off. On the left, you can start to see that I have my section here and my first frame. These layers over here are going to be super important. They are going to, be almost like the structure of everything that's being put together. So super important to keep an eye on this layers piece. And we'll see as we kind of start to experiment a bit why that's super important. I'm just going to check my phone real quick just to make sure my sound is still working because you never know. I've started a live stream many a times and was muted. So it happens. It happens a lot. But I tried to be super, super careful about it. Okay, let me just triple check. All righty. Let's see. All right, where is my group? There we go. All right, I just want to triple check. Yes, my sound's working. Okay, good. Sorry for that. All right, so now that you have your main pieces here, you can start to assemble your email, pull together your brand board. One thing I highly recommend, like we have these color styles over here, but I recommend making a section up here. So you have this big section, and I call this my brand reference board. And if I have, a really locked in client who has their whole brand preferences, I'll come in and I'll even paste in a whole bunch of emails to reference. So like they really like this look or they really like that look. Or with that color fill, like I was mentioning, you can pull over here from the local styles. Or if you wanted to, you could drop in some squares like this. just so you have another easy way to grab it. You could come over here. Technically, if you click your libraries, it'll be right there. But let's say you don't want to do that. You just want to have it up here and you have your little color palette. Okay, see how I like kind of suddenly made a color? That's unintentional. But if I'm working in an email down here and I just want to grab my little eyedropper, so there's an eyedropper right here, and you're just like, okay, I just want to pop over and grab this purple real quick. Boom, you can grab it really fast. You can also throw in your logos in here so you have it easily to grab onto. Your text as well. So if you want to do some sample text, you could say that this is a headline. Let's make this larger. So we'll say like this is a headline text. And then same thing, you could come over, grab that Roboto or whatever your font is and make sure it's over here, ready to go just for any reference if you wanted to. So a reference board is really, really helpful. Really, really helpful. So if you are looking to kind of really have something you can easily grab onto, highly recommend putting in a brand reference board. All right, now that we have kind of a starter email in the works, I'm just going to drag this into the middle, drag it down. Generally, I will, let me start here. If you're feeling really stuck on what to do next with your email marketing, and you're like, okay, I don't know how I'm going to look like my competitors. I don't know. I don't understand Figma. I feel lost. Here is a trick that you can do. If you want to go to Mild.com is basically an email newsletters, almost like an archive of what everyone's sending if they've been kind of, logged in here. But let's say, for example, you're really digging an email in here that you just saw. So we have this one by Caddis here. Super simple, nothing too crazy, but we really like it. Okay. We're like, okay, I want to do something just like that. I use a Chrome plugin called Go Full Page, and you can use that to take a screenshot of your entire page. But we'll grab that, we'll download it, and then back over into our Figma board, we could just literally, you can toss any image that you want that you have in your folder right onto the page. So I got this giant image. You're like, okay, I want to capture the essence of this. I really like it. I want to outline it. I just want to do something super similar. Highly recommend you are not copying other brands' designs. Please don't do that. But the structure of it, you're like, okay, this fits my brand. How can I just get this as a template? I want this as a template to work with. I am using a Mac, so apologies if this doesn't apply if you are on Windows, but it's going to be very similar. I'm going to hold down the Command key here, and I'm going to trim this image down like so. So let me zoom out, and just so we have the exact template we want to work with without all this extra stuff, okay? And then what I'm going to do over here is mark it down to 600. So now we have almost an exact piece that we can work from as inspiration, okay? So if I'm using my brand template, my branded thing that I established already, I don't have a logo on hand, but let's say, whoops, undo. Sorry, what did I press? I did something crazy. Okay, there we go. I am not exempt from making ridiculous mistakes, so we're all good. Just had to do a quick Google. How do I make this not be like this anymore? Which, by the way, let me throw this out here. Figma, I use Figma for doing emails. It's intended to like design full websites with. So yeah, I do what I can. So Shift-O to fix that if it goes all outliney crazy. All right, so we had our headline piece here. Let me paste that in here. And as you can see on the left, my headline is now inside of this frame, okay? That's super important. So we'll pull our headline here. Well, actually, we're just going to call this our logo. So let's pretend our logo is hanging out right here. We have a logo. And then we have almost like our main title here of some sort. And then with that one, I just went ahead and clicked Control-C, Control-V. And then I'm going to pull this into regular text. And we're just going to do a good old lorem ipsum, which is like a placeholder filler that we can kind of think about what we want to have here, right? So what's great about this reference email actually is that it is very, what I like to call above the fold friendly. So when this lands in somebody's inbox, they probably see up to when these glasses are stacked on his head, maybe the rim of the hat actually. But I can easily see what maybe this email is going to be talking about. So I see, the logo's great, that's fine, but I see kind of like some fun copy. I see this lead in, I see the call to action, all of this without having to scroll in my inbox, which is huge. Okay. So just calling over here, we have our frame with our items inside of it. So again, that's super important because if you're dealing in Figma and say you're working on something and it's outside of your frame, it can sometimes be a pain in the rear because you can't figure out why it like won't act the way you want to, or like when you go to export it, it's missing. If that ever happens, it's because it's not inside of your frame. Okay. So with this, I mean, we have we'll work on a text. Maybe we have some text we want to work with, but you can come over here to the shape tool and draw out your button. So what's great about buttons here, let's say we're doing like this one here. You can zoom in and even make them into pill shape buttons, or even just a slight like curve happening here. And let's say we want to plop a text over it and we'll say, this is our call to action. So when you're working in Figma and you're getting used to it, like, do not be scared to just be like, something's going to go here. Like, you're almost like, call to action goes here, main title goes here. You're really kind of building some pieces together. And then we also have, we have this here, and then we just have like an image or a GIF or whatever we decide is going to go here, right? So with that, you can draw out, a big old rectangle here. And we'll leave that gray. We don't know what we're going to put here. Something's going to go here. We'll go find an image. And then another piece could be that you have your background being a different color. So with that one, you can come in and apply a square. So with this one, I'll do it that way. So say I'm applying a square. It put it all the way at the top. If you can see on the left, all the way at the top of my frame. We're going to move it down to the bottom. So then all of my stuff is now above it. And then we're going to change the color. So say we're going to end up doing this color here. Let's change this one to be our dark purple. And then we'll change this to be white. So we have kind of our email somewhat coming together here. I mean, this is a super simple one, nothing crazy. The footer, I'm going to leave off. Your footer always, honestly, should be built within your email builder, especially your unsubscribed links, having those pieces in there, let them be, live as actual text blocks. They don't need to be a part of an actual design that you're working on. All right, so say we have this going on here and we want to add in our image. We can head over to Unsplash, and this is just for practice, but you can come in here and grab an image you really like. So let's say we're crazy about this potted plant. We want to put that one in, okay? So we'll come back over and we'll drag our potted plant in. It is going to drop it in pretty full size. If you hold down the corners and hold down Control, Shift, you'll be able to scale it down without it warping. So, sometimes when you shrink an image down and it all of a sudden like all stretched and distorted, trying to avoid that. But you can see when I pulled it in, it started to clip inside my frame, which is what we want, okay? So we have our image here. We have our reference shell. We could technically just cut this into the shape that we want, but I do want to show you masking because it's super important. So when you have your image here and you have a reference shape that you want this image to pop into, you can put the image over the shape and hold down Shift, and you'll be able to select both of them. Then you can right click and use as a mask. And then once you have it in there, you can double click that image and move it around this shape, but it's living within the confinements of that shape I put it in. So this is great if you're working, like say you have blobs and things that you like to use and you want an image to pop right into that blob you built, you can do that with the mask. So we have our plant here. We're really digging it, looking good. We can just come in after and start working on, we'll say, maybe this is like, call me plant mom or something. I don't know. That's like a thing, right? Maybe that's going to be our headline. And then we have our kind of lead in copy and call to action, yada, yada, yada. But you can see like putting that together in a pretty limited time. And we have this reference email where using it as a guide, I mean, you can go back through Mill, you can find a more complicated one, but you can start to dissect what is making these emails so great. That one is short and sweet, and the design was above the fold, which I was talking about, but you can pull in maybe a more complicated one. So we have this Clark's one. We're doing almost like this shape here. So say if we wanted to do that, maybe we'll do that with our piece here. So say we want the white to come all the way down and behind, back to that pin tool. Pin tool is super easy and useful to build shapes that you want. So let's say we have it kind of stretching here. First, it's going to be very angular, and then we will make it more rounded. So we'll do here, here. We'll do almost like a triangle and then connecting it. And then you can click this rounding piece right here, and then we'll make it round. On the right, right now it's what they call stroked, so it's outlined. We're going to remove that. Then we're going to fill it in, and we're going to make it white. So as you can see, it has not only covered everything, it also is, it clipped out of our frame. So this is what I mentioned about making sure your elements are layered. So we're going to drag it right here on the left, back in. Okay. And then we can kind of click off, click done, and we have our shape. I mean, we could, you know, kind of work this a bit more. Maybe we want it more like this. And even like kind of touching the sides, maybe even might also have to mess with it actually being, I think it's a little crooked, but we can mess with the sizing and pieces with it. No worries. I mean, you can come back over into your pen tool and work within it as well. But say we wanted to do that. We wanted to have this curve to it. Maybe it's a bit of an interesting piece. I Control C, Control V, and then I have another piece here. And maybe we decide we want to kind of repeat that pattern. So it's kind of going whoop and then whoop and shoop, whatever. It can go like that, right? So, I mean, I highly recommend when you're first getting started, see what other brands are doing. You know, oh, they're doing text here inside of almost like a pill button, right? So it's like, okay, let's see how we can incorporate that. Maybe with our plant email here, we're like, okay, yeah, we really like that. Let's talk about how awesome it is. So we're going to put it also in like a cool little pill here. Let's make it white. And then drag it down below our text. And then we have, you know, boom, we got something we're talking about here. Call me plant mom, whatever we're going to have, like, okay, locally sourced from your local nurseries, whatever we're talking about with our plants, right? The main thing here is see what other brands are doing. There's nothing wrong with that. Highly recommend you actually do not copy another brand verbatim no. But when it comes to design, get inspiration and practice. I mean, that's the biggest thing. Like, get practice and see how the structure is, how they were able to achieve what they did. Again, let's say we open this one, we're like, ooh, a button that bleeds into the next section and it has like a stroke around it. Back to the drawing board. Okay, we're going to do that with ours. So let's draw our button here. We need to move it above our image, and we're going to put in a white stroke so that it looks super cool with it kind of going into one section and then the other. Boom, there we go. You know, it's done. Experiment. That's the biggest thing. So I hope this was helpful. This was, I think we're going on close to about 30 minutes now of kind of running through this, but I just want to talk through the basics of kind of getting started. What to be doing, how to get inspiration, pull things together. This definitely is not a final email, kind of looking like a hot mess with my crooked thing here. But once you work through actually building the blocks of your email, things will become so much easier with putting together a design you like. So y'all, I hope this was helpful. I'm going to try to edit out how long it took me to fix that one thing. If that ever happens to you, Shift O. Somehow I hit Shift and O at the same time. So But super excited for y'all to just jump in, start experimenting. Hopefully this was helpful. If there's a certain piece of a design element you would like me to dive into further, don't hesitate, drop it in the comments. Happy to talk it through, do another live video really detailing some of these more intricate design pieces. Okay. All right. Thanks for joining me, guys. I will see you next time.